to Jesus I surrender. To Him I freely give. I will ever love Jesus. Precious name. I surrender all. I surrender all to Thee, my blessed Savior. I surrender.
Well, thanks for tuning in on our Testimony Tuesday, and this is another one of our church members. His name is George Compton, and we're just going to hear how God got a hold of his attention. So, George, thanks for coming tonight to be a part of this, number one.
You're welcome.
My first question I'd like to ask is, how long ago was it, or how old were you when you came to know Christ as your own personal Lord and Savior, and what kind of things did God bring into your life to make you realize you needed Him as your Lord and Savior?
So, for me, it's like a two-part question. I mean, it's a two-part answer because it actually happened in two different sections of my life. The first time I come to know the Lord, the first time I met the Lord, was in January of 2004. I had just gone through my first divorce with my first wife, and I got over into South Korea. I just got out of the military too, so I was between my first and second wife. And I got back over there, and a friend of mine, his name was Randy Turnage. He knew my first wife, plus he knew my second wife, and he knew the circumstances surrounding that whole divorce process. And he knew me, you know. So when I got over there, my heart was kind of messed up a little bit because of the way that I'd done my first wife. See, I didn't divorce her because she was a bad person or because she was running around. It was just, in that relationship, I was always the underdog, you know. I was always caught up in payday loans. I was always stressed out on finances. We're getting by on $1 worth of gas.
Right.
And it was just that lifestyle of never having nothing really except, you know, each other and the kids, which was fine until, you know, the world showed me something different. And I'd already had my second wife lined out before I ever left my first wife.
Wow.
But the experience was that it was a totally different part of the world. See, I'm always worried about where my next 12-pack's coming from with my first wife, you know, because I was an alcoholic since the time I was 13. My daddy was an alcoholic. My granddaddy was an alcoholic. They both died from alcoholism. I saw them switch from beer to whiskey, and within 5 years, each of them was dead.
Wow.
But Sarah, she had $500,000 in the bank when I met her. And she could sell anything, you know, water to an Eskimo. She worked the markets over in Seoul, Korea. And she had 2 or 3 5-tons that she'd send down there every night, and she'd sell these vegetables off in Chuncheon over in Korea. So my point with saying all that is that it was a different lifestyle. There's a flavor to money. Money has a taste to it, and the things of this world surrounds money.
Right.
You know, and I thought I knew what love was, you know. But the truth is I really didn't know what love was till I found Jesus, and I'm going to get to that in a second. But so I left my first wife, in essence, truly, for the world. I was chasing money. But if I would have did something different, I wouldn't be where I am now. So each thing that I experienced during my life, as I look back on my life, happened for a reason. It put me where I am today.
Right.
So when I got back over there, my friend Randy, he knew the whole situation. And he told me, he says, George, he says, man, he says, I can see you're kind of stirred up on the inside. And he knew I felt bad because of the way that I left my first wife, you know, 'cause she really was she was a good person. She was loyal. She was dedicated. It's just that the world was out here saying, look at me, you know, and now I'm getting to bounce to Bangkok. Literally, I left her a note on the kitchen table that said, bouncing to Bangkok. And I literally bounced to Bangkok.
Wow.
You know, and then with Sarah, we went all over Japan, Korea, Philippines. That year they had the big tsunami over in Thailand. We had plane tickets. We had plane tickets to be there.
Wow.
On that day. And just like 2 days before, something didn't work out, and we had to cancel.
Wow, that was December 26, 2004.
Yep, December 26, 2004. So in January of 2004, I got back over there as a civilian, because I'd been over there as a military guy. I was in for 12 years. I started out at Fort Campbell up in Kentucky. So I did Campbell, Korea, Hood, Korea, Hood, Korea, Hood, and then I got out.
Wow.
And the very last time I was in Korea, I decided, hey, I'm gonna dig into this culture. You know what I'm saying? Because the first time I went over there, there's a book out there. It's called The Ugly American. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
No.
And none of this is scripted. I'm just really, we're just having a conversation here. It's called The Ugly American, and what it talks about is how people go over to these other countries, and especially soldiers, and they don't ever get into the culture. They're like, they got that attitude of like, hey, if you want to talk to me, you talk to me in my language, like your language is superior or something.
Right.
So this time when I went over that last time, I really dug into the culture. And the Koreans are just some awesome people. The South Koreans, I love the country, I love the people. But I ended up meeting my second wife. And I got to see a whole different side of life. I didn't have to worry about where my next 12-pack was coming because, you know, I was an alcoholic and everything. And I got over there and my friend Randy, I'm back on the story. I get my friend Randy, says, George, he says, you know, I experienced something this past year while you was gone. He says, I know Jesus now, you know. And I'm like, what are you talking about, man? I never talked about Jesus with Randy, right? You know, he was an older guy, he's a civilian guy, he worked safety. So he says, he told me, he says, there's a meeting going up here on this mountain over by Camp Red Cloud. And he says, I think you ought to go up there, man. He says, it changed my life, George. I'm like, well, I don't know. I needed something. I needed something to help me through this transition of this, you know, what I look back and it was hurtful. And it's still having effects on that first relationship. I don't talk to my ex-wife, but I mean, I can still see the remnants of the hurt that I caused. So I went up here on this mountain. I didn't no more get out the bus. The bus is sitting there, and we pull up, and all these people are standing in line singing De Caloris, you know. I can't even remember the song now, but it was De Caloris. I remember that's what it was, and they was all singing like this. I made it inside of this big reception. I wasn't there 5 minutes, and I'm crying. The Spirit of God just crawled all over me.
Wow. For
3 days, I spent up there on that mountain just crying. I mean, every time we start to sing a song, I'm just crying and crying. I remember this big old brother, you know, the colored dude, black dude, man, he come up and he just give you this big old hug from behind. He says, we got another one here, you know. And I came down off that mountain and I couldn't get to the river fast enough to be baptized. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's the first time that I met the Lord. I mean, because I come off there knowing for a fact, hey, this God is real.
Amen.
You know what I'm saying? He's real. He's powerful. I want to go get baptized. You know, I'm going to give my life to Him. And you know, anybody that has an experience like that, I think from looking at other testimonies and stuff that I looked at online, you know, a lot of people have this experience where they have that experience, then the next thing they notice, they're like, wow, the grass looks different. The trees look different.
Yep.
God made this, you know, He's real and He did create it. And this is what happened with me. And I come down and I went to go get baptized as soon as possible. And my second wife, I don't think we wasn't married yet because we just got back to South Korea. I remember specifically, she's out here. I'm getting baptized, right? The biggest moment in my life up to this point, the biggest moment, she's out here doing a business deal on her phone, you know, and I'm in the white thing. And I'm getting baptized in the river over in South Korea, right?
Yeah.
So this is all happening, and I remember it really hurt me on the inside. I'm thinking, how can you be on the phone, you know? And it's the cross between my other wife and this wife where I'm at. But I know that God is real. And I got baptized, but, you know, we just got back over in South Korea, and I was an alcoholic, Jeff. And we'd just bought a bar.
Wow.
We'd just bought a bar right outside Osan Air Base in Osan. That's the name of the town, too, is Osan. We was right out there. We catered to top brass of the ROK Army, the Republic of Korea Army.
Wow.
So Sarah would build them a big fruit bowl when they come in, and they'd buy bottles of whiskey by the bottle, by the fifth. So for a fifth of Jack Daniels, say we give $35 for it, right? They would pay $250 for it from us. They buy the whole bottle, you know, the whole fifth, and then she'd make them fruit and stuff like that, and I'd sit up there and drink with them and everything, but it wasn't. I had to have a job in order to be over there. You know, I couldn't be there without a job for my passport and stuff. So I'd got a civilian job working in the same place I was working while I was in the Army, but this time I'm totally free. You know, I had no restrictions, right? I'm off the cuff. But what Sarah did I mean, I've never talked about any of this with anybody, but what she did is that she would almost just demand that I stay there till 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning because it's good for business, because everybody wants to see my face,
Wow,
you know? And then I would have to go to work at like 7 o'clock in the morning. I got to get through the gate of the base to get to work. Now, this was the best job I'd ever had in my life. You got to understand. I mean, I'm going from my first wife, which, like I said, it was a lot of transition. I tasted money, you know, and this is my first real job out of the military. $72 a year, tax-free. So, I mean, to me, that was good money.
Yeah.
But I told you, my wife, Sarah, she had over $500,000 in the bank, and she could sell ice to an Eskimo. I mean, I'm not even joking.
Right.
She was that good. Money just folded through. But what she ended up doing, she'd keep me out all night, and then she wouldn't listen to me when I'm like, look, I said, I can't do this no more. You know, I'd be drunk at like 11 or 12. I'm like, I got to go home. We only just lived a few blocks from there. We'd bought an apartment over there. They sell apartments like their houses over there, you know. But she'd come home, and I remember one night I'd lock myself in the bedroom because she'd get like violent. She'd get mad, you know. I'm over in Korea. I ain't fitting to go up to no Korean prison or jail, you know, on accusations of spousal abuse and eat kimchi for no years upon end. I ain't gonna do it. But she took a hammer one time and beat it off the bedroom door, kicked it in, come in there, and I walked 12 kilometers. That's probably, I don't know what it is, but it's less than 12 miles. It's probably 10 and a half or 11 miles. In South Korea, down rice paddy roads with no shoes on, right? All the way from where our bar was, where I worked at Camp Humphreys, which was like 12 kilometers from where we lived. In the middle of the night, went to a friend's house, borrowed his shoes, his socks, some clothes from him to go to work that day. This happened a couple times. So one day I turned in my tags to my vehicle, and I flew back home. And what Sarah done, she'd called me, and she talked me back into coming back. She's like, yo, boy, she's like, promise, I not do it again. I'm like, look, Sarah, I can't deal with that. You know, I mean, I can't stay out all night. I've got to have a job to be there. You know, something's got to change.
Right.
And it never did change. I did end up going back, and I did the same walk within a month after being back. And I got rid of everything the very next day. I flew home, and I ain't been back since.
Wow.
I did a divorce, you know, through the attorney and stuff, and they tried contacting her over there, and we've talked a couple times, you know, because I told her at one point, I said, Sarah, I got these divorce papers. I said, if you want them, you know, you just contact. I said, I'll send them to you. Give me the address, I'll send them to you. Because sooner or later, you know, you might need them, right? I mean, these are divorce papers, are legit. And I remember she's like, you even human? Are you even human? You know, she was angry. But like I said, I ain't fitting to go up in no Korean prison and eat no kimchi and rice because things got elevated and all of our neighbors are Koreans. I'm in Korea.
Right.
You know, I ain't fitting to do that. I've never hit a woman. The only time I've ever laid my hands on a woman was with my first wife, one time. And she'll laugh about it now too. She knows she was wrong. She knows she was wrong, you know. She spit in my face right there in the middle. I was coming out of the kitchen into the front room, boy. She just spit a big old loogie in my face. I drunk. She was mad about something. And I slammed her down, but I backed off of it pretty quick. But that's the only time I ever laid a hand on a woman. I get verbally abusive. I've destroyed the house a few times. A few times are just absolutely shameful things that I did. But yeah, so I left her. I got back here, and there's Lola, you know. And it's a crazy story because me and Lola was high school sweethearts.
Really?
Oh, yeah. The first time me and Lola had ever moved out of our houses, it was with each other. We had a little efficiency apartment with the couch that folded out, you know, and I had milk crates.
Beds, yeah.
Milk crates, you know, with towels over them for end tables. And
Yeah.
I remember I got with Lola, she couldn't even boil a hot dog, man. Literally, true story. I remember, she's like, how do I do that? I'm like, you just boil the hot dogs, honey. We've got chili dogs. But it's a funny thing, you know. But I come back and I got back with Lola. My mom always loved Lola, you know. Throughout my life, my mom left my dad one time, and her and Lola got an apartment. This is while I was with my first wife.
Wow.
My mom left my dad. She was having an affair with somebody. I think his name was Al, country dancer, right? My mom was wild my whole life. You know, I didn't grow up knowing Jesus.
Right.
I didn't know Jesus at all. I mean, I knew of Jesus. I remember when I was like 8 years old one time, I was out in the park and we'd stolen a bunch of those bottles, the Coke bottles, right?
Right.
Well, they used to have crates and crates of them, these people just sitting on their back porches. And for big 32 ounce, you get like 25 cents.
Right.
For the other ones, you get like 10 cents a piece or something. Well, me and my cousin, we had alleys ran all through our place where we lived. So we'd go back there and we'd steal a couple cases of these. We'd take them up to Solo Market, the little corner market. We'd trade them in. We had a bag full of lemons. I think a couple sodas because lemons were cheap,
Right.
No, but we're sitting out here and it's a beautiful sunny day. And you get those random thoughts sometimes, right? This was a thought. And I remember looking at the sky and I thought, how did I get here? Oh, well, I guess this is life. Guess I'll live it, And then I remember, I don't know if it was the same in your family or maybe some other people's family that might be watching, but we had a big white Bible. And it sat on the coffee table.
Right, yeah, I
right? The
remember
big
those.
white one. It was
Yep.
opened up, and my mom had a rose from Elvis in there that she got
Wow.
the year before he died. I went to that concert. I think it was in '76, I want to say. I think I was 5 years old and down in Springfield. But she had, her important papers, right, and
Sure.
stuff in there. And I asked her about that Bible one day. I said, Mom, what's up with that Bible? She said, that Bible's about a guy named Jesus. She says, I believe in Jesus. Fair enough. Mama believe in Jesus. I believe in Jesus. I don't know Jesus, but I believe in Jesus. Got to be
Right.
something good about him if Mama believes in him, right? So my whole life, all the way up until in 2004, that was my thing. My first wife, she wasn't practicing anything, but she always told me, she's like, look, she said, when those people come up to the door, just tell them you're Catholic. They'll leave us alone. That's what she said. That's what
Yeah.
we did, man. They come up there to the door, and I'm like, hey, we're Catholic, man. We don't need none of that. Right? And they left us alone. I run around with the St. Christopher on. I think my oldest stepdaughter from my first marriage, right, Ashley Ray, we're still in contact, My son from that one was my stepson. I raised him for 13 years,
Right.
So we have a relationship. I love him. It's still, no matter what happens, I am Ashley's dad for all intents and purposes.
Right.
She's never met her dad. I am her dad, and I love her, But, yeah, I forgot where I was. Help me out. Where was I at?
Well, you came back to here and you and Lola got
Oh,
together.
yeah. Oh, so we stole the lemons. I had that. And then the Bible. And then I was over there in South Korea, was up there on a hill. I met Jesus in 2004 for the first time, got baptized. Sarah was on the phone. A funny thing happens when you're an alcoholic, and it doesn't matter, We bought a bar. So no matter how much I loved Jesus, the world was pulling me this way.
Sure.
So I stayed in that world until January 2018. And we'll get to that in a second too. But the question I think you originally asked is was there a circumstance that happened that really made you open up your eyes? Because
Right.
that in 2004, that didn't bring me to Jesus. I remember hearing you say that you went to church. But there was a certain point later in life when you realized that, hey, Jesus is real, and I really, truly want to give him my heart.
Yes.
And the same thing happened to me. 14 years went by, and he never forgot about me. I wasn't serving him. I wasn't working with him. I wasn't doing nothing for him. It wasn't until 2018 to where I was able to look back and see everything that happened. But in December 2016, all right, I was down in Springfield, Missouri. My wife had left me in 2013. I was going to this church. We used to
Right.
come to this church. You baptized my wife and my daughter.
Yep.
And she took off as she left me. She took my daughter. And I was a terrible person. I wasn't a good person, I was doing the things of this world. I had a 3,000 square foot house. I had a 72 Monte Carlo that we'd restored. I had a new Harley. I had all my guns. I had my own gun range, 3,000 square foot house. I was in the world, as deep as I wanted to be. I had all kinds of other stuff going on too. She had every right to leave me. But I ended up chasing them down. The Lord, I'd filed for divorce here too. And like the day before the divorce was going to go through, I called that attorney. Well, I was up I-55. I was heading north on I-55, and I just felt the Lord. He said, stop it, George. Just stop it.
Right.
So I called up that attorney, and I says, what do I got to do to get this thing stopped? Where's it at in the process? She's like, well, I was going to take it over there after lunch and get it signed. I says, well, what would it look like if we just didn't do that? She said, well, it would look like it just never happened. She was happy.
Right.
She was happy. And I called Lola, you know, and I'm like, look, I said, I stopped this divorce. You know, she doesn't left. She's got a job down there trying to pay rent. And, of course, I'm jacking her every time I can, you know. I ain't getting my money, right? And she ain't getting my daughter either. I remember one time I went and picked up Kayla, and I brought her back here with me because Lola was down there. I met her in Rolla, and I brought her up here, and Miss Faye and Bill was still here at that time. And I dropped her off for Sunday school or church or something like that. And I went back home. And I got so drunk that I forgot all about Kayla.
Wow.
Miss Faye called Lola down there in Springfield. And she says, Lola, she says, you know, I don't want to call nobody. She says, but George never showed back up to get Kayla. And so Lola called Barb, which is my drinking buddy's wife. She is Catholic. I don't know. Not that matters, but Larry was a Pentecostal, and he married a Catholic. So it's just a funny thing. We always kind of joked about that. But Barb came up here and got Caleb. So I called up Lola after the Lord came, and I canceled that thing. And I said, like, look, I says, I says, if you want a divorce, you're going to have to pay for it. You're going to have to start it. You're going to have to initiate it. I says, because I've canceled it. I said, I just want to come home. And I'm sorry for what I did. I just want to come home. And she said, George, she says, the Lord told me you was going to come home. She says, I haven't done anything with anybody. She says, because I know that you're the kind of person where you just, it sends you over the top. She says, just come home, honey. She said, we'll work it out.
Awesome.
So I sold that house and went up working up on the slope there for, I guess, up till the middle of 2016. But when Lola had left me, I got hooked on that synthetic marijuana. I was smoking a lot. Right. And I heard about it on the news, so I stopped by up there on Del Mar Loop, and I got some of this stuff. And when you first smoked it, very first time I smoked it, it was just like regular pot. You know, you smoke a little bit. And I mean, boy, I had the munchies, you know, the giggles. I'm like, wow. I'm like, they got to be able to find this in the urinalysis, right? So I ran up to Walgreens. I got a 12-panel urinalysis. Clean. I'm like, are you joking me? So I'm serious, you know. This really happened. And so I smoked the stuff from probably middle of 2012 till December 2016, maybe February 2017. But what happened is it started getting so strong. You know, like when it first started out, it was just like regular pot, really.
Right.
But it started getting so strong that, I mean, it was like, I don't want to say, it was like crack cocaine or something. You know, you just take a hit, it's like, it's just really, and it got there at the end to where, like, every time I'd smoke this stuff, I'd get attacked. It's like it would put you in such a state of mind. I mean, you would, like, smoke some of it, and you'd wake up a couple, 20 minutes later, and half of it's in the floor. You know, I mean, it was like that numbing, right?
Wow.
But I would just, like, get spiritually attacked. I mean, something would just slam me on the ground right in the middle of it, you know? And I mean, serious. So I got to where I was just little puff, little puff, little puff. Well, in December 2016, I'd been without stuff for a little bit, 3 or 4 days. You know, my brother-in-law, he's like, hey, George, why don't you come on over? You know, I got something happening over here. So I went over there, and the girls was out in the kitchen. We back in the bedroom. I smoked this stuff, right? Next thing you know, Daryl, he sits me about right here. He's kind of shorter kind of guy, right? All of a sudden, he stands up. He's towering over me. He says, hey, George. I'm serious, just like, he says, you still want it to be over? I'm like, what are you talking about, Daryl, you know? I didn't say nothing to anything about me ever wanting it to be over, you know,
right.
like, and he says, I asked you a question, man. He says, do you still want it to be over? I'm like, Daryl, I don't know what you're talking about. But see, I realized something. Daryl had power. I don't know what kind of power, but I understood, unequivocally, I understood that he had the power to change my life forever. I mean, I felt it, right?
Right.
So I kind of stood up. It wasn't a fighting kind of thing. He had some kind of authority. And the girls heard something going on, so they come back in there and they split us up, right? And I started going out, and I said, I tell you what, Daryl. I said, I'm going to take my wife, my daughter, and I said, I'm going home. Man, he kind of takes a couple steps back. He's like, you are you? You are? He said, well, we'll see about that. We'll see about that. We got out there in the car, and so I'm thinking, he's got to be a cop. Because every time I smoke this stuff and every time stuff starts happening, the only thing I worry about is Kayla.
Right.
You know, I'm going to lose the one thing, I love my wife, but when that baby came out, that was a different kind of love.
Right.
You know, and Lola can say it too. I mean, that's a different kind of love.
Yep.
That's what I'm over. That's when I realized I ain't never loved nobody. If I loved anybody as much as I love this, you know? So we get out of there and we get home. Anyways, we start to leave. There's a cop down here off to the left. I'm like, honey, go this way, go this way. She's like, no, I'm going this way. I'm like, no, go this way. So we get home. Kayla goes to her room. She's playing. You know, she's kind of numb to everything. She don't really know what's going on. She was still relatively young, you know. And Lola goes off in the kitchen. Well, I go off into the bathroom. I drew this little drawing. I can't draw, man, but this is the door leading into our bedroom. The blue square here is where our bed normally sits. This down here is a bathroom, right?
Right.
Well, right here, I was in the bathroom, and I come walking out of here through this door. And when I hit this threshold right here, Jeff, I ain't even lying to you. I'm telling you, this is a true story. May the Lord strike me down. This is a true story. The girls was there too. Something of an invisible nature snatched me up right here with such force. My feet left the ground, hit the side of the bed. The bed goes all the way up against this wall over here, and then it flips me around like this and pushes me backwards to where my torso's right here in the dead center, and then it flips me and drags me to the ground. So literally drags me to the ground. I'm on all fours. I mean, my back is arched. You ever seen that movie Ghost, where you see the spirit, kind of the dark spirits moving? Right. This thing had me. It had me, you know? And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I holler out for Lola. I'm like, Lola and Kayla, you know, they came in there, and I was talking to Kayla, and for some reason I just thought, I told Kayla, you know, something about God. That's what was coming up, something about God. And I'm like, honey, just stay with God, stay with the light. And then I'm like, God, 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 God. And I hollered, I said, God! I mean, as loud as I could, just like that. I mean, it was like crickets. It's nothing. And then all of a sudden, I thought, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And man, I hollered out just as loud as I could. I said, Jesus! And man, as soon as I said Jesus, I could feel it with resistance. I mean, he didn't want to let go. I was separating. I mean, my back was arched like this. I was seconds away from separation, and they would have had me. They would have had me. But man, he let go like that, and I went and crawled up on that couch for probably a good couple hours. You know, that's when I realized that the darkness is real. I mean, I knew Jesus in 2004, but you know, I didn't know the extent of how bad I needed Jesus and how much authority Jesus had. When that thing had me, God didn't come to rescue me. It was Jesus that came to rescue me. So that was in December 2016, right? I had got fired from a company that I was working for. It's called Acuren. I was working up on the slope with them, North Slope up in Alaska, Prudhoe Bay, I think is what it was. I forget the exact name of the pipeline. It's irrelevant. So we came back. I came back. I was doing like a few weeks on, a few weeks off. And then that job ended, so I ended up going to St. John down in the Virgin Islands, right? And I get down here, and the very first day I'm there, it's the Virgin Islands, man. You know what I'm saying? This is rum country. I'm down here, and I meet the guy that's running the job down there for Acuren. The very first night, I stay out till like 4 o'clock in the morning. I mean, just drinking. Wow. So by the time I get there the next day, because the plant's pretty much a ghost town, you know, he's like, don't worry about it. Well, the next day, I end up going here to get my ID. Man, they're doing breathalyzers. You know, the lady, to get my ID, I had to do a breathalyzer.
Wow.
Oh, I felt miserably. I was still drunk. I mean, literally still drunk. I called that guy, I forget his name. I'm like, look, man, I said, you're going to have to find a way to get me out of this, right? I mean, I was with you. You know, he's like, man, he says, I can't do nothing. He says, you know, I don't know what to tell you, you know? Yeah. So I ended up I lost that job. They flew me there, flew me back, fired me. This was like in the middle of 2016. This was in the middle of 2016. So I had 6 months to where I ended up like pawning everything that I had of value. I'm still paying. I got Kayla in Christian schools, Springfield Christian schools down in Springfield, trying to protect her from the world that's going on out here. Meanwhile, that world is it's a madhouse out there, in our school systems. So I'd end up selling my motorcycle to pay her school tuition and pay her mortgage payment. But this was, like I said, I did about 6 months of that, and then that happened to me in December, right? Mm-hmm. Jesus saved me. He saved me. And so in January, I was at the point to where if I didn't get a job the first week of January, we're looking at bankruptcy. We're just going to lose everything. Everything. I done had everything that of value I've done sold or gotten pawned. My mother-in-law's given us food, because I've done spending everything on everything else, right. the things that I was dug deep in, with the drugs and the drinking. And I'm drinking. I was a fifth a day functioning for the last 5 years before the Lord saved me. Fifth a day functioning. Every down here, it's fifth a day, man. We just drink all the time. Not weeds, me and Lola. She would drink socially just to get my attention, but I was always drinking. So that happened in there. And then, so like the first week of January, if I didn't get a job the first week of January, we was probably, more than likely, we was going to have to file bankruptcy because everything was like, it was pushed to the limit.
Yeah.
Lord saved me in December. In January 1st, I'd called up here to Team Industrial. They run the fuel refinery over here at Wood River. Right across the river, right? And it just so happened that a guy named Bob Clark was working there, and he knew me.
Really?
Yeah, he knew me from when I worked at St. Louis Testing. So he just heard my name. He's like, yeah, George. He says, George's a good guy. He says, we need to get him if we can. So I went out and I spent some money, got me, a tie and some nice clothes. And I come up here to that interview and talked to a guy named Mike over there, and they hired me, man. They didn't do no background check on me. They did. I talked to Don Balmer because I got fired from St. Louis Testing, where I'm working now. I talked to him before I went up there, and I'm like, look, I says, they may be calling you for a reference. I says, I'm sorry the way things went. I says, but, I'd appreciate some kind of a good ref. They never even called. Wow. They never contacted Acuren. I just got the job, right? But it was for turnarounds. I was a contractor. So the first turnaround didn't start till April. I'm still looking at, I got this time, man.
So
I need money.
Got a few months. Yeah.
I need money.
Yeah.
So they worked it all out. The Lord worked it out. I ended up with having to do like 30 or 40 hours worth of training, online training, so I could do that from the house, which got me a paycheck.
Sure.
And they was paying me, I don't know, it was good money. It was good money. And so that just went on till April. And when I started this job April 1st. And, excuse me, they put me on night shift, 12 hours a shift, right? So I'm on night shift. And I'm still drinking, and things are still going on, but my mind just keeps going back to December. This God, how you say save me, And so I've got night shift, 12 hours. Well, we do a whole lot of hurry up and wait, in my job. We just do a whole lot of hurry up and wait.
Sure.
So I would watching YouTube videos all the time. So the Lord just kept taking me to these things. And I watched this one video. I think it was by Truth Unveiled 777. I want to say that's the channel. But what I learned from that channel, she was talking about generational curses. And she's saying that we've got to repent and get rid of these generational curses. And then the Lord can work with us. But so it all made sense. She said, in the Bible where it says, the Lord will not only punish the children for the sins of the father, but third and fourth generation.